AWS later on, but just to give you a preview of AWS. If you go to Google, right, type in AWS, right, it will give you Amazon Web Services. That's the first thing that will come up. Just select that link. That will take you in here, right? So when it takes you, if you don't have an account, right, it will ask you to create an account. I can't remember if it asks you to sign in or create an account. So it will give you a sign in. If you don't have an account, it asks you to create an account.
Sorry, someone is on WhatsApp saying he couldn't get in. I don't know if you can help him to get in.
Oh, it's on WhatsApp. Let me see. What is that? Ricky says I can't get in. Oh, hold on just a second. Let me pause the recording. So, okay. Are you people hearing? Can you hear the background noise, the TV?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, good. Because I'm trying to keep someone quiet so it doesn't disturb us while we're in the class. Okay, so let's continue. So this is an AWS interface. So once you get into your AWS account, this is what you will see, right? Now, AWS has so many services. We'll get into these services, most of the services that AWS has. When we get into AWS, we study AWS as a platform. But just so that you're able to create an instance and SSH into the instance, AWS has what they call a virtual server in the cloud. Then the virtual server is called EC2. And that's what we're interested. That is the instance. That's the machine, AWS machine. That's what we're interested in right now. So when you click on EC2, right, you'll see this interface comes up. On the left-hand side, you have the menu. Now, if you click on the EC2 dashboard, so this gives you the dashboard. Like you see, I have 4 instances running right now. I don't have any elastic IP. I have 5 snapshots, and it will give you details of information that of the resources that you have that are running, right? So that's your dashboard. Now, what we're doing actually is the instance, and this is the instance. You can access your instance from this dashboard. You can also access your instance here. Now, if you access your instance here, it's going to give you all the instances that is running and the ones that are not running. So if you stop any of the instance and it's not running, it's going to show up here. You can see these ones are running. The stop instances will also show up here. If you just want to see just running instances, just go to your dashboard and click them here, and all you see will be your running instances. A situation where you stop your instance and you want to restart it, if you click on the dashboard, it's not going to show you those hidden instances. Go over here, you will see the ones that are stopped and the ones that have not been stopped, right? If you want to stop your instance, because when you sign up for AWS, what AWS does is it gives you 700 hours of free time to use before they start charging you. So it requires you to put in your debit card or credit card when you open an account. They're not going to charge a dime, right? They'll give you 700 hours. So 700 hours is enough for a class period. The only time that you incur any kind of cost is when we get into Kubernetes, because Kubernetes doesn't allow us to use a free tier. If you use a free tier account, you might not be able to run some of the manifests that we have because they are large files. So when we get to Kubernetes, I'll ask you to go ahead and create your cluster, but allow it to run. You might incur a fee of about $5 here, $5 there. It's not going to be that much. Maybe $10, $15, $20 here and there. That's not going to be. But before we get there, we have 700 hours for you to spend. Now, let me tell you how to, let's create an instance, right? To create an instance, you just go to where it says launch instance, right? You click on launch instance, it's going to launch a new instance for you. Now, this is how to create. You give it a unique name, give it a name, whatever you want to call your instance. Call it my new class. It's not case sensitive, so it can be lowercase or uppercase, it doesn't matter, right? Now, like I told you, I like Red Hat, so the distro that I want to select, so these are all the distros that I showed you, all the Linux distribution, right? I like Ubuntu, I like Red Hat. Amazon Linux is just like Red Hat, but I prefer Red Hat, right? So Red Hat, we'll be using Red Hat, then we'll switch to Ubuntu later on. So I select Red Hat, I want to select Red Hat, and I want to keep it at T2 micro. I showed you last time that you have all kinds of CPUs that you can use, starting from the smallest CPU to supercomputer, and they charge you as you go, right? But this one, T2 micro, is the free tier eligible, meaning it's free. You can use it for development, for trial purposes, and so on and so forth, for training, right? So we'll go with T2 micro. Now you have to create what is called a key pair, right? So create a key pair. To create a key pair, I will explain what key pair is. Key pair is because I told you earlier that Linux is built on security. Everything is security. Now, key pair is more or less like you having a lock and a key, right? You have a lock, which is a private lock, and you have a key, which is a public key. Then you use a public key to open the private lock. That's what key pair is, right? In a simple term. That's what it is. So to create a key pair, just click on create key pair, give it a name, a unique name. It could be any name. For example, I can give this class 003A, right? So that's my key pair. Now, key pair has algorithm, right? This is RSA algorithm, and they also have ED 25519 algorithm. So, but we'll use RSA, which with a .pem right? Don't do anything around here. All you need to do, type in your key pair name and click create key pair. Right. That key pair is created for you and is in your download folder. Anytime that you need it, you can get it from your download folder. So that key pair is created, right? Once it's created, now we're not going to, you see, we have storage here. We can increase the storage capacity of your, but we're not going to do anything. Don't do anything. All I need you to do is to create an instance. We're not going to modify the network settings, create any subnet or anything like that. When we get into networking, I'll show you how to do all that. But basic thing is to create an instance. And that's how to create an instance. Just click launch and your instance will be created in minutes. Okay? All right, once you do that, you can view your instance, right? Now it shows all the instance that I've created. This is the new one, it's pending. In a minute, it's going to be created. Okay. Right, so once this is created, you can just select this instance. Either you select it here or you can click this link and it will give you the details about your instance. Now you have the details here. That gives you the IP address, the public IP address, private IP address. If you're not sure what your key pair was, this will show you the key pair, right? Here we have class key pair. It's not here yet. You have click, and you want to see the kind of distribution. You see, this is an Ubuntu distribution, right? And the one that we just created now, we'll take a look at it. It's a Red Hat distribution. Right, if we get into details, let me see. Yeah, this is a Red Hat distribution, right? And this is the public key and the private key. So what you really need here, yeah, sorry, I got distracted a little bit. So what you really need here is the public key. We want to use the public key to SSH into we have to SSH using SSH client into this this cloud setting, this instance. So this is what happens. Let me demonstrate this so you can take a look at it. This is what I'm doing. Okay. This is you. Yeah, this is you, and this is your laptop. And in your laptop, you have downloaded MobileXtem, right? Now, I have a cloud infrastructure here. I have my AWS cloud is instance. Call it EC2 that I created. So now I want to use the MobileXtem. So this MobileXtem is my SSH. It's called the SSH client. I want to be able to access my instance in the cloud, which is a computer that I just created here in the cloud. So the question is, how do I gain access into this? Right. So I need two things. The first thing I need is I need the IP address. Right. It could be it has to be a public IP address. I'll tell you why later on. Okay. And I also need my key pair that I created, right? Also need key pair. Another thing that I also need is the name of my distribution, my EC2, right? So I need the name of my instance, username of my instance. Right. So when we created this, we created Red Hat instance. So with Red Hat instance, the default name for Red Hat instance is EC2 user, right? So that username will be EC2. So if I have these three things, my IP address, my key pair, my username, right, I'm able to SSH into my instance in the cloud. And that's what we're going to do, okay? So let's get back to MobileXtem. I told you to download MobileXtem. By the time you download your MobileXtem, you have this interface, right? Now, I have the interface, but I am not connected, right? I need to set up and connect using my interface here. This is my SSH client. Do the connection to my cloud system. So to do that, like I said, you need an IP address. So I will copy this IP address, right? Then go to my MobileXtem, click on session, then go to SSH because I need the SSH client. On the remote host here, the remote host, I would paste my IP address, right? Then specify the username. I said the default username for Red Hat is EC2 user. It has to be all lowercase. It can be uppercase. Linux is case sensitive, right? So now I have my IP address, I have my username. What's the next thing that I need? I need my key pair. Those are the three things that I need to be able to SSH into my cloud. So I can go to advanced SSH settings. Here I can select use private key. When I select use private key, now if I select this blue object right here, it will take me to my folder, right? In this case, it takes me to my download folder. If it doesn't take you to download folder, go ahead and search for your download folder because that is where you'll find your key pair. This is the key pair. So I'll select this key pair, click on open, and click on OK, right? Accept this, and I am connected to my, right? I am now connected. So this connection is complete. I have my IP address, my key pair, and the user name. I have SSH into my AWS, right? So now I'm in here, right? So anything that I'm doing right now is not, I'm not doing this on my laptop or my computer. I'm doing it on the instance in the cloud. So if I run any program here, is in, I'm doing it. So we've installed all that, we've done the terminal. Now we can start running some commands. And I have a few commands here that we ran last week. I have a few here that I can also show you. For example, this commands like the pwd command, the cd command, make directory, remove directory, touch command. These are simple commands that you can you can run. And let's see what it's all about. All right, so simple commands like the ls command, right? Ls command means list, right? List command, I have a whole bunch of, you can do ls dash l, ls dash a, right? You can do ls dash l is to list in the long format. ls dash a would list the hidden files. So you have some hidden files. ls dash h is just to present the list of files in a human format. Okay, let me explain that so you can have an understanding. So you can create files, right? You can use to create an empty file, you use the touch command. So you see touch, create a file, create one file called NASA, right? That file is created. If I do ls now, right, I want to list the files. Now, if I do ls, what's wrong, right? I have a file here called NASA. It's an empty file. Nothing is in this file, right? I can create another file, call it touch. I can call it, I can call this file Uche, right? If I do ls, I'm just listing the names of the files that are in there. So if I do ls, it's going to list the files. I can create another file called Ricky, right? So do ls. I have 3 files now that I created, okay? Now, I can also list this file in the long format. If I do ls dash l, right, it gives me the privileges, right? It tells me the owner of this file is the owner of the file. It tells me the group that this file belongs to, right? And it also gives me the date that this file was created and the time it was created and the file names. And gives you the file names as well. Okay, so that's if you do ls-l, it gives you all that information. Another way you can also list a file, if you do ll, right? ll will also do the same thing that ls-l does. ll will give you the same information as well. It will list all the files and the long command, but the short way to look at it is ls. If you do ls-h, right, it just gives you the same thing. Let me see. I think there's this one. Yeah. ls-h, capital H or small h, will give you the same thing, right? It's just a human format of reading. It makes it more clear. It's not complicated. We'll get into these privileges. These are permissions. Read, write, read, read. These are all read, write. So I have this file has ability to, you can read this file, you can write the file as an owner. We'll get into all this. Let me not confuse you. Now, we just created that file, and I was showing you the ls command, how to list the file. Now, every file that you create has what is called a path. It has a directory. It has a path, right? So if you want to look at the, I'm rushing, so let me slow down a little bit. Let me go according to what we have here, so I don't rush it. So we look at ls command, right? Another thing we want to look at is probably the pwd command. Yeah, pwd command is a print working directory. So every file that we create has some kind of a directory. It has a path, right? So if you want to know what the path is, that's what is called the print working directory. What is the working directory that you're working on? So we can do that if you type in a command, just pwd, right? It will tell you that the path is home EC2 user. This is the path. So all the files that you're creating right now will be on home/EC2 user. So it gives you the home page and the EC2 user. So all these files, if you want to do find the path, right? The path is this situation that you need to use the path and you don't know what the path where your files or your directories are. You have to do pwd to be able to know what the path is. So pwd means print working directory. Okay, so there's the working directory that you'll be working on. Okay, let's take a look at another one, another command. So another Linux command is the cd, right? CD all simply means change directory. And let me show you how this works. So if I do CD, right? So let me see. To do a CD, let me introduce you to one other command before we do the CD. I want to introduce you to make directory. If I want to create a directory, so directory is like a folder in your Windows when you want to store files in your Windows operating system. What do? You create folders, right? You create a file, then you put the file in the folder. You can create several folders, and you can have a lot of files. And to arrange your information, you put them on separate folders, right? In Linux, they call directories, right? So you can create a directory. So for example, I can create a directory, make directory, and I want to call this directory IT, right? So that directory is created. So if I do ls now, you see my directory is different from the file. The files are on white, the directory is blue, right? It gives you that difference. So you know that this is the directory, this is file, right? I can create another directory, make directory. I can create another directory, call it UKPE repair, right? If I do ls, right, now you see that I have two directories here, right? Now, how do I get into this directory, right? Directory is just a place where you store things. How do I get into the directory? So if I do cd, right, into UKPE, right, now I've changed the directory from the main directory that I was, which is the home directory. I'm in this directory now, which is repair, right? So how do I get back to my former directory, my home directory? I can use the change directory again. I can do cd space dot dot. That will take me back to my original directory, right? You see, if I do ls now and again, so I'm back to my home directory. I can also, because I have this directory, I can get into this directory. I can do cd. I want to get into this directory, right? So now I'm in this directory, IT directory. If I want to get back into that directory, right, into my home directory, I can do cd space dot dot. Now I'm back into my home directory. Okay. Let me do one other thing now. I want to get back into repair directory. Then I want to create another directory inside the repair directory. Okay, so get into repair directory. Now I want to make another directory inside repair directory. I call that directory eToro, right? So now if I do ls, I have a directory. See this directory? You see this directory now is inside the repair directory, right? So I can cd into this directory, call it cd into eToro, right? So now eToro directory inside repair directory, I'm in this directory right now. And inside repair eToro's directory, I can create another directory. Let me clear this so you can see better. I can create another directory. I can call it Akpan, right? Make directory. That's my middle name, right? So I have another directory now. So if we do ls now, I have this directory is under eToro directory, right? So now I can cd into Akpan directory. Okay, now I have directory inside a directory, inside a directory, inside a directory. If I just want to have a visual on how my directory, all the files look, I can run what is called a tree command. Tree command doesn't come originally as a binary file in your Linux command. Sometimes you need to install it. But if I want to run a tree command, right, to see where all my files are, I can just do tree, right? See, it tells me it's not found. It's the command not found. I have to install that tree command. So I can use, because I'm using, I can use a package manager to install this. I can do sudo yum install tree, right? So it's installing that package for me, the tree package right now. So yum is a package manager that you can use to install, to download packages, right? Let's say yes, right? Yum for Red Hat, yum for Ubuntu is app command. Don't worry about that. We'll get into that. So now I have, if I run a tree command now, So tree command shows me, the only thing it shows, because I'm in append directory, because there's nothing, I don't have anything in the directory, it's an empty directory. It doesn't give me anything. Okay, so how do I get back from, now I have a directory that is inside the directory, inside the directory, inside the directory. How do I get back to my original directory, right? If I run this command cd, and I use this tilde, right? It will take me back to my home directory, the original directory. So if I do ls now, so what you see back into my IT and Opera directory, right? So now if I run a tree command now, you see this, all these commands. So I have this directory that there was nothing in it, but now I have another directory now. I created a directory inside this directory, and I created another directory inside this directory. So the tree command will give me a pictorial form of how my directories are. I have 3 files and I have 2 directories. One directory doesn't have anything in it. This directory, this directory, these directories have some things in them, right? So in other words, I've created a file and I also created a directory. Okay, so if I want to get back into, let's cd back into this directory, Opera directory, right? Now I'm in Opera directory. So if I do ls now, you'll see this other directory. This is the only directory I will see, right? Now I'm in this directory now called Opera directory. So I can cd into eToro directory, right? Now, if I do ls, what I'm seeing is append directory. So I can cd into append directory, right? So now if I do ls, I wouldn't see anything because this is the end of it. From here, I can create a file. I can use the touch command and create a file and call this file my first file, right? Now, if I do ls, I have a file in here that has that is inside this directory. So if I go back into my home directory, now if I do a tree command, let me clear this. If I do a tree command, now I see this file. I have this file now inside this folder, which is append directory. So in other words, I'm showing you how to create a file and how to put your file in a directory and how to get back to your original file. You can back up using a cd dot command, and you can change your directory and go to the other directory that you're looking for, and so on. So you can go back and forth, right? So that's the purpose of this exercise. Any question? Okay, let me review what we've just learned. What we've learned one command called the touch command. You can use the touch command to create a file, right? You can call that file any name, say Olu, right? Right. So if you do ls, you'll be able to see that file is created. Okay. Now you can also create a directory. You use a command called make directory to create a directory. You can call that directory Smith, right? So if you do ls now, you find a directory that is created, right? And inside a directory, you can create a file inside a directory. So you can cd, for you to create a file inside a directory, you have to get into that directory. For example, we can get into this directory called Smith by using cd command, change directory, right? Cd command, get into Smith, right? Now I'm in the directory called Smith. Inside the directory called Smith, I can create a file inside this directory. So I can do a touch command to create an empty file, and I call that file Benga, right? Right. Now, if I do ls command, inside this Smith, I have a file called Benga, right? And one other thing, I can populate my file if I want to, right? So if I do a sudo vi command and I call Benga, I have this file already created. Now I'm doing a vi. I'm creating, vi means an editor. Is a form of editor. It could be vi or it could be vim, right? I mean, showing you another command. I'll show it again later on. Vim. I want to populate this file that I created. I use a touch command to create an empty file. And now I want to populate the contents of my file. So if I do a vi, yeah, this is, and I hit the I command would create an insert mode for me so I can edit or modify or put anything in this file. I can say this is my first file, right? Now I created some kind of information into that file now. Now to close this file, I can use Shift ZZ, meaning that I can save it and close it. Don't worry, I'm going to get back into all this so you know the term. Or I can do, all right, let's just use that one for now. Shift key, then I hit ZZ. Now that file is saved and closed, right? Now if I do ls now, I have that file called Benga. Now I can look at the contents of this file. If I do cat Benga, right, I have the contents of this file now. So now I've introduced you to another command called the cat command. Cat command is used to read the contents of a file, right? If you do cat Benga, right, I can read the contents of the file. I can also do vi Benga, and I'll go back and I'll show you the contents of the file that I just created, right? Okay. Now, I'll show you how to create a file. I'll show you how to read a file to bring a content of the file. Okay. Any question? Any question? Okay, let's get back into, let's look at, so we've done the cd command. Using the cd command, I'll show you the touch command, and I've showed you how to make a directory, but I haven't showed you how to remove a directory. Now you've created a directory. Now, how do you remove your directory? Let's see. Okay, how do you remove a directory? And how do you remove a file? We've also created a file. How do you remove the file? Okay, let's get back into that real quick. Let me clear this so you can have it clear. So to clear, if you want to clear your screen, just type clear and hit enter. That will clear the screen. Again, I'm going to go back into my home folder. So I do cd, use the till function, right? I do ls, so I have these files now. I want to remove the file called NASA, right? So to remove the file, see, if I do rm command, NASA, it's not going to remove, okay, it's remove the file because I'm the owner of the file. So if I do ls right now, all right, NASA is gone, right? Again, if I want to remove the file olu, I do rm command, olu, right? The file is gone, right? I'm able to remove this file because it's my file. I created it as an EC2 user. If I did not create this file, I would not be able to remove this file. It will give me, it will say I don't have the privilege to create this file, right? For example, if I change the user, if I had added a user and want to use that user, I'm a different user now, and I want to use that user to remove a file that EC2 user created, I would not be able to do that. But for me to be able to do that, I would need to elevate my privilege. Now, to elevate the privilege, you use a command called sudo, S-U-D-O, sudo, right? So you do sudo rm, right? Which file? Wiki. You want to remove wiki, right? So if I do ls, wiki is gone. Okay, but what if I want to remove a directory? Remember, this is a file and this is a directory. So let's see if I do rm ukpe. Let's see what happens. It says rm cannot remove ukpe. Ukpe is a directory. So that command, rm command, will not let me remove a directory. There's another command you use to remove a directory. Do rm al. Let's see what this will do, right? Rm al, rm dash r. Am I right? Yeah. rm dash r, right, would help me remove the directory. So you have to use rm dash r to remove that directory. There's another way to remove that. So if I do ls now, you see Ukwe's directory is gone, right? That directory is gone. I think you can also use, you can force remove a directory. I think you can do sudo rm dash, oh, that's in Kubernetes. Sorry about that. Yeah, you can force remove in Kubernetes. That's another command in Kubernetes. So to remove a directory, use rm-r. For example, if you want to remove IT, so I use rm-r to remove IT. So that directory is gone. So if I do ls now, the only directory I have is Smith and Uche. Okay, that's how to remove a directory, right? Let me see what else that we have. Which other command? Any question? Right, so you can also use rm. Okay, this is the command I was looking for to remove a directory. You can use rm drr. Right, this is the command I wanted to, right? So the same way that you're using rm-r, you can also use rm-dir, right, to remove Smith. Oh, Smith is not an empty directory. Let's see. Change directory to Smith, ls. Oh, Smith has Benga file in it, right? So you cannot, for you to remove Smith, you have to forcefully remove Smith, right? You cannot just because it has a child file inside. So to remove it, if you do rm-r Smith, rm-r remove Smith, no such file. Wait a minute. Oh, Smith, do we call ls? Oh, I'm on Smith. So let's go back. cd dash play this. All right, so I do ls, I have Smith now. So if I do rm-r Smith, okay, now I'm able to remove it. I'm forcefully removing it, right? So let me make another directory now, call it OKO, right? So I have a directory OKO. If I do rm remove directory OKO, I'm able to remove that directory because I don't have any file inside that directory. But if I create it, let me create another directory and call it low, right? Now I have a directory called low. So I cd into low directory. I'm now in low directory. Now I create a file inside low and I call it file, right? So if I do ls, now I have file inside low. Now I'm switching back to my home directory and I have now file now low. By the way, I have file inside low. If I try to remove this file, make directory low, I won't be able to remove it because I have a file inside. It's not an empty directory, but I can forcefully remove this low, right? If I do rm-r, I can forcefully remove it, right? That's a forceful removal of that directory, right? But mr remove that dir is not going to remove it because there's something inside that file. It's not an empty directory. Okay, let's get into the file system. File system hierarchy, we're looking to navigating the file system and how to manipulate the files. Some commands to use to manipulate the files. First of all, last week we talked about the directories, all the directories that we have in a Linux system, and these are them, right? You have a slash like this, that is the root directory. So if you have something like this, that's the root directory. So let me get back. Yeah, if you have something like this, right, that's the root directory. If you say cat this, cat is not a directory. Well, so in other words, you can cd into your root directory. It's a directory. That's the root directory. You can get into your root directory, right? You can cd back or exit out of it. You lock it out, then you're back to your normal directory. Clear this out, right? So you're back into your normal directory. So your root directory is the root. Everything hangs on your root directory. Do I have a diagram? Let me see if I have a diagram to share with you. Some of that. Okay, I think this is it. Yeah, so this is the root directory. Every other thing hangs around this root directory. When you have this slash, backslash, that's the root directory. So you have your home directory, bin, bin directory, etcd, lab directory, and so on and so forth. So this is the hierarchy of it. right? From there, you have every other directory. And as we explained last week, right, what you have in this directory, right, from the root directory, the bin directory, all your binary files, see all the programs that we run, like the commands that we run, ls command, are called binary files. All those binary files are stored in the bin directory, right? So you get to the boot directory. Boot directory is what you use to start your Linux kernel, right? For example, if you want to start your laptop in Windows, it has a directory that hosts all the files, that initialize the files and start up your computer. Also in Linux, you have the boot/boot directory is what does that, kickstarts the kernel and boot your program. Then you have the dev, right? This one is typically is used for storage. You know, you have physical storage that you used to have, like CD drive, or what do you call it, flash drive and all that. Now that's the directory that if you want to connect it to external source, that's the directory that gets that information, and you can connect it to that directory, and that directory will be used to store information. It's a conduit to storing information to the external directory. Then you have the etc directory. It contains the system-wide configuration files. All your configuration files are in the etc directory. So when we're doing configuration, you see, go to etc, then that holds all your configuration file. Your home directory, like you create a username and password, all that all the users that we created, right, are on the home directory, right? Like the files that we created, the directory that we created, all that is in your home directory. Then the lib directory is basically the library directory. All the library files that your Linux operating system is running with is on the library directory. So most of these directories are used by developers when they want to store information, right? So after they store the information and you want to grab that information, some of these directories will be referenced. You go to etc, you go to live directory and all that to grab that information. And the media direction is the mount point as well for your USB drives and so on, and for all the media files are also in the media directory. The OPT directory is used to store optional software packages. So if you develop a software package and you want to distribute your package, most of the packages are stored in the OPT directory. Proc directory is just for processes. All your files, processes that are running on the background are run under the proc directory. Then the /root directory is the home directory for system root users. It's for super users. Super users are, for example, the admin that have to maintain the stability and the security of your system. So only super users like the Linux administrator have access to the root directory. The sbin directory is also where all the disks and ifs config and shut down, if you want to shut down, all that is in the sbin, and only the administrator has access to the sbin. It's more or less like the bin directory, but this bin directory, because it controls, if you have access to it, you can shut down someone's system. So only administrators have access to those directories. Then you have the service data directory that store data. Then you have temporary files. That's exactly what it does. All the temporary files are stored in them. Users directory is also like the OPT directory. When you create, you can use it. Some developers like to use the user directory to store their software that is developed, right? You can use it for multiple purposes, either for storage of data or using it to store binary files that you created. Then the variable folder or directory is for data, including all your logs, right? All the logs Logs are information that or the system collects whenever you run a system or kind of a program in your system, or it collects information, it scrape information and put them in one place. The directory that it puts them is the var directory. So that's the simple structure of how a Linux is. That's a simple structure. With all these directories, that makes up the file system of a Linux command. You probably would not be asked this in interview. It's just for you to know, because when you start working, developers would like to refer to all these different folders and directories. Is a good thing that you just know about them, right? This is good for your future. And as we work, I'm not sure, when we do some installation, you'll see some of these, because some of them, especially etc and the opt directory, will be referencing when we're doing installation and all that. But apart from that, nobody's going to ask you questions on those file directories, but you have to know them. For example, if I'm installing a file and I say it should be installing /etc, why is it etc? Why is it not /var? You know the differences, why it's done that way. Okay, so with that, let's move to module 2, user files and permission. Okay, I think we've talked a little bit about permission. So now, if you say you're the boss, right? You're the lead. Mostly team leads are considered the SME, this subject matter expert. So if you're in a team and you are DevOps engineer, you asked to do what is called user management, right? And you can also be asked to do file management, right? I've shown you how to do file management, creating a file, creating a directory and storing a file, right? You can create a file and store it, right? That's file management. This is user management. So user management means you probably have to create a user. If you have a system, you have to create a user, create a group, right? Give the user password, and put users in different groups. Let me demonstrate this before we move forward. Give me a second here. So you have a group, and this group, so these are developers, right? So you have developer A, developer B, developer C. Let's give it a real name. You have this developer you call A's, this called B's, this called C's, this called D's, right? And you have another group of individuals, and this group of individuals are DevOps engineers, right? And they're called E's, they're called F's, you have G's, you have E's. Okay, so that's the name of these are users, individual users, and these are the group that they belong to. Now, your responsibility is to create users, not only create the users, then add users to the group. If an engineer or is a user is a developer, add the developer to this group. If the user is the DevOps engineer, add the DevOps engineer to this group. Let's just use these two groups for simplicity. I mean, it could go on. You have the product team, you have the architect and all that. So because you're going to give them different privileges, right? They're not all going to have the same privilege. So you have to put them in a group. You can give them privilege, read only, or read write privilege, or read write execute privilege. That's why you're putting them in different groups. So that's your task. This is what user management is all about, right? So we'll get into add a user. You can delete the user, right? Create, be able to see the user, right? And maybe we'll subsequently we'll create passwords for user. But that's what user management is all about. Okay. Any question before we continue? Okay. So in Linux, user accounts and groups are essential for managing access control and permissions. User accounts represent individual users, while groups allow you to organize users for easier management, right? So this is an example. If I want to create a user, the username is John. How do I do that? So I use a command, right? So in this, I can create sudo user add, and the first name is, let's use A, right? So that user is created, right? Let's create another one, sudo user add B, right? I'm using, let me do this, user, let me show you something, user add C. Am I able to create that user? I'm not able to create that user because I don't have the privilege. For me to create this user, I need to elevate my privilege. So to elevate my privilege, I use a sudo user add C, right? So that user is created. We also had D also, right? Sudo user add D. So the command that we learn here is user add. User add adds a user, right? Adds a user to the account, right? Okay, so that is done. We also have other users, right? So let's go back to our diagram for simplicity. We also have other users, if, let's create all these users and we'll be able to put them in groups. That we understand exactly how to do that. Let's also create sudo user add is, right? Sudo user add f, right? So the simple way to do this, right? If I do my up arrow, I have that last command, so I can just change this to this, right? I hit my up arrow. Oh, sorry. Hit my up arrow and I backspace and I can do this, right? So all those users are created. Now, how do I see these users that I've created? Is a question. Is a complicated. How do I know these users are created, and how do I see these users in my system? So if I go back here, there's a command to do that, right? The command is etc password, right? So if I do cat etc password, I should be able to see all the users. But that will not give me a clean way of looking at this. Let's do this first so you can take a look at this. I want to cat /etc password. It gives me the user C, A, B, C, D, E, F, right? It gives me all this and also gives me the home directory where they are stored, right? I told you when you create username and password, they are stored, especially username, they are stored in the home directory, right? It gives you all this. It gives you X here is for the password. We'll get into the explanation of all this, right? But what if I just want to see just the name, the human readable form of the name? I don't want to see all this. I just want to see a clean name, right? So there's a command that you run. Don't really worry so much about this one. It looks complicated. I'll tell you, right? We'll get into how you do the pipe and do the sort. But this command, what it does is it it does some kind of alienation whereby it cut off all the other John's information, right? Then from etcd, then it sort this data for me so that I can have it in a human readable form. So if I run this command, right? Let me copy it. If I run this command right here, if I run this command, it gives me, it sorts from alphabetically all the users that I have in this that's running in on this account, right? So this is the command, cut-g colon, then -f1, then the etc. I pipe the etc into this after I cut and delineate every other thing that I don't need, right? Using this cut command, right? Then I run the etc password command and I sort it. And I sort it from alphabetically. That gives me that, right? Don't worry so much about that command. We'll get into the sort command and all that. Then you understand how to pipe. You put things, you have a command, you put it through a pipe, and that pipe filters, and you get whatever you want on the other end. We'll do a pipe command as we go along, right? So I just wanted to show you that how to have a clean, human readable users, right? That's for that. So let's continue. So now I've had this group of users, I've had these users, but how do you put them in groups, different groups, right? So I can use another command called group add, right? But before I use group add, I need to create the groups, right? Before I add them to the group, I need to create the groups. So I use group add to be able to create the different groups. So we had two groups. We had the developers group and the DevOps groups. So we go back to our command. We can do sudo group add developers, right? So that creates a group developers, right? I want to create another group called the DevOps group. So I can do DevOps. Let me keep them all small letters, right? So I have two groups now, right? So now I have two groups. How do I add the people that I created into these groups, right? How do I add these people? Again, if we go back to our diagram, right? We have all these people in groups. I've created the groups, I've created the users, but the users are not in the groups. So now I have to move these users into these different groups. So that's what we're going to do next. To be able to do that, I have this command, the AJ command. To add a user to a group, use the user mode command with the -AG option, right? So it will run a sudo user mode -AG. Then this is the group, then you add the name. So in other words, this is what you do. Sudo user modification, short form for user modification, then -A, small letter A, then G. Then the first group is developers, right? Then the name of who I want to, the first name was A. Give me a second, just a second. Okay, I have someone. Sorry about that. Okay, so I have a user mode -AG developers A, so that if I hit enter on this one, right? So I've added A to developer, right? I think last time I checked, I could add more than one user at once. Let me try real quick. Let's see. No, it doesn't allow me to do that. Let me try it again. Hold on. I think I could add more than. Oh, it doesn't allow me to do that. Okay. All right. So I add one at a time, right? So I add A, I add B, then I add C, then I add D to this group, right? Now I have another group, DevOps, right? So for DevOps, right? For DevOps group, I add F, G's, and H. All right. So what I've done is I've added, this is exactly what I've done. I've created this. That's what I've accomplished. I've created the users, right? And I've added the users, I've created users, I've created the groups, and I add all these users to this group. I create these users and I add all these users to this group. So that's what I've accomplished with that. So which command did I use? I use the user mode command to do the add. I use the group add, user add to create, I use user add to create the users. I use group add to create the group. Then I use user mode, user modification -ag to put the users inside the group. So those three commands help me create the users, help me create a group, and add the users to the group. This command is very important because when we get into Docker, in automation, because you're doing automation, you want to be able to add a user to a particular group. If you don't do that, you will have to do sudo on every time that you want to run. You want to put sudo on anything. So if you automatically add, for example, Docker to a sudo group, right? So you don't have to repeatedly, every time you want to run a create your image or anything like that, you don't have to add sudo to it because you already add the name, the Docker, which is the username, to a sudo group. So that's when you use things like this. So we run into this again, this command again. You'll not see it throughout until we get into maybe Docker, right? I'm not sure you'll see it in Jenkins, but you see it in Docker. Either Jenkins or Docker, I think both of them will run into this command again. So take note of this, okay? So that's how to add a user to a group, okay? So you can also, to view the members of a group, you can use the get ends command. So this, okay, now you've added the members to a group. Now, how do I view those members that I've added to a group, right? You have another command called get ends command, right? So if I get back here, I do get ent, right? So the name of the group is what? Developers, developers, right? So let's say that command again. Give me a second. Yeah,
That get entire.
Sorry?
That get entire.
Get what?
Entire.
Entire, yeah.
Command. So
yeah, get entire group.
Get entire.
Yeah, so get ent is a
Are subset.
Yeah. Get entire. Yeah, so you with this, you see all the names that are associated to that developers group, right? So if I also want to check the group, get and group DevOps, right? I will also have that as well. So you see the names of the people associated to that group, okay? Any question on that? Okay, so it's a simple command. All these are simple commands that you can just look up and you can run them. It's not anything, but you have to be able to run them to get used to it, to know what they are, right? Get ends command, or you can call it, if you call it get entire command, would help you. This one is user mode, user modification, right? If you call it that way, you'll be able to know exactly what it is. So you can view the users in a particular group. And you can also delete a group. So we have another command called group delete, right? Now that we've created a group and we want to delete a group, so you can do group delete, and we can delete developers, right? Oh, we have to sudo elevator privileges, group del developers, right? Now that is gone. So if I do get entire group now, developers, right? Nothing comes up, right? I can't find anything, right? Because it's been deleted, right? And I can also delete, I can also do group del and delete this group called DevOps, right? So now if I run my get entire group, right? And I want to see DevOps, that group is gone. I can't find anything, right? Okay. So those are simple commands that I'd like you to go ahead and learn how to run it. So we are here. Another command is to check